The Hangout is live on air. Yeah. Do you want to tweet it?
Yeah, I'll tweet it from my account.
Okay. Do you have the YouTube link?
It still says please stand by starting soon.
Okay. It should be live now. It says live in the corner.
Okay.
Um,
No, it still says please stand by.
okay.
Okay,
Good.
now it's working. Now it's working.
The
Cool.
Hangout is. Is there a delay?
I don't know.
Because I think I heard myself speaking.
Okay.
Cool. You guys good to go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
All right, cool. Welcome to the first 9 to 5 cast in a long, long time. I think the last time we were doing these, iOS 7 was in beta, so it's been a while. And it's pretty it's pretty fitting now that the discussion this week is really iOS 8, since the last time we were talking was a lot about iOS 7 coming up. And so this week we're joined with Mark Gurman from 9to5Mac, of course, with Mike Beasley and Benjamin Mayo, and I'm Zach Hall. So let's
hi
get
Zach,
started.
how are you?
Great. How are you, Mark?
Good, thanks.
Cool. The big thing last week and this week is really your reporting on iOS 8, Healthbook, features in iOS 8, that kind of thing. And right off the bat, let's get started with Healthbook.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about it, for those that don't know.
Yeah, so Healthbook is an app that Apple is currently testing with iOS 8, and it's a central place to locate a bunch of different health, fitness, activity, lifestyle information. So the application will be able to track things such as glucose, which is blood sugar, which is very important for diabetics. It would also be able to track heart rate, blood pressure, calories, steps, miles walked, stuff that a classic pedometer can do, as well as more advanced things like there's a blood work section, as well as we've been talking about respiratory rate, oxygen saturation, which comes down to different algorithms for analyzing stuff that can be interpreted via your pulse. So lots of interesting stuff, and the user interface for it kind of looks like Passbook, which is an app that launched a couple years ago with iOS 6 and the iPhone 5, which stores movie tickets, boarding passes, coupons, loyalty cards, and such. And the user interface and the name Healthbook would be very familiar to anyone who's seen or used Passbook. But the big question here is where all that advanced data and different medical metrics that I just discussed come from. Is it based in self-reporting? Is it based in stuff that's being interpreted via sensors and chipsets built into existing Apple hardware? Does it come from a companion device, such as an iWatch, which we know is in the works? Or does it come from the slew of third-party apps and third-party iPhone connectable health and fitness accessories already on the technology accessory market? So that's the question. And I think that's going to become clearer later this year, whether that's through accessories or through an iWatch.
Yeah, so first off, terrific job. That's a huge unveil, and it's really been kind of the talk of what we're looking at going forward with Apple. It also looks like the new reminders interface with iOS 7. They're really doing that cards interface well. And
Good point. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. For me, it really does point to another device, because the iPhone 5S, it can already pick up steps, but there's a lot of stuff in Healthbook that you can't. It'd be hard to imagine an iPhone alone doing.
Right. Like the M7, which is the motion coprocessor, which allows accelerometer and other motion data to be tracked with efficiency on the iPhone's battery life. From the iPhone 5S, it could do things like steps counting, and with that, the iPhone Healthbook can use software-based algorithms to figure out miles walked and other things like steps and calories. But the other stuff like hydration, respiratory rate, oxygen saturation, blood sugar, heart rate, blood pressure, those are going to require some more advanced devices that either exist on the market or to be created by Apple in the near future. And we've done a lot of reporting about Apple hiring sensor specialists, sleep experts who can manage sleep data, and people who specialize in blood sensors, all sorts of really interesting things. So it's fairly clear that Apple's working on their own hardware initiatives, and it's to be seen whether 2014 is going to be the year of Healthbook plus the iWatch, or just Healthbook, and 2015 or 2016 will be the year of the hardware. We'll see. I'm thinking a bit more about this. And if you remember, iTunes came out before the iPod, right? So.
I mean, some of these categories are it's pretty insane to think that an external device is even going to track some of this stuff, because stuff like blood, it's like they're hardly seen in consumer devices at all. I mean, obviously it's not going to come from the phone, but something's going to go on your wrist. Like, how is it even going to do it?
Right. That's what's kind of amazing.
A massive like black spot.
Yeah, when you look at the hiring, I mean, these people's resumes from before they were at Apple, it's really like sci-fi, science fiction kind of stuff that they've been working on. Stuff like digestible Bluetooth-enabled pills to track when your medicine, stuff that people would kind of freak out about now. But if Apple can do it and kind of put a nice friendly wrapper around it, people will, I think, enjoy it and make a lot of use out of it. Another thing is that Apple doesn't have a history of hiring medical science, people in the medical field before recently. It isn't like they've been at this rate for a long time. And it isn't like these. We're just reading from the screenshots, or the app itself. Tim Cook's even said things about how there needs to be a product. There's a hole in the market, sort of. There's things like the Fuel Band that do one thing well, but not one thing that does a lot of things well. And that was kind of his hint to what's to come, what we might expect.
Do you think some of these categories people even care about, though? Like oxygen saturation, where does that? I mean, I don't. Like, who cares? Like that was one of my main response to this. I mean, the first one was that this entire project seems massive for a first step. It's covering so many topics, but then I looked at it and like heart rate, blood work, hydration, blood pressure. I mean, you can see the direct like correlations then, but oxygen saturation, like where does how are you going to convey that to a customer?
Like some of these things, there's a lot of science in my research into this, like oxygen saturation and respiratory rate. They're all based in the pulse oximeter technology already. So it's things that the iPhone, if it only were going to be able to track your pulse, the pulse data could give you the oxygen saturation and respiratory rate anyways. So might as well throw it in.
And it isn't like you care about this one detail, but it all encompasses what health is. And it's to kind of answer your who cares question about some of the specifics singled out. For me, it's kind of like the gamification of your health. I'm not particularly fit, and I'm not super interested in fitness. But if I can, if it's an app that I can hide it, but I can't install it. If it's on my iPhone already, and Apple's kind of endorsing this behavior and this software, that's kind of like the automatic dongle for a car. Makes it shows you like your driving habits and ratio. That made me want to be a better driver. I'm not sure how good it's worked for me, but it's fun though. It kind of gamifies. When you can measure those things, you can tell if you're better or worse.
Yeah, I mean, I never measured my steps or anything really, but then on the 5S, I just have the Pedometer ++ app installed, and it just tracks steps. And I actually do look at that, so I can see where you're coming from. Yeah, you just, it's there, and it does it assumedly without any need for you to deal with it or manage it or tweak it. You just lets it runs, and then you go back one day and review it over. If you're like on the sidelines, or if you're like a fitness conscious person, you can check it every day or whatever.
Yeah, and if there's a band associated with this, that's something that we've not yet seen. Is someone make a really a moral case for why we should be wearing a computer on our wrist? The phone's obvious. We have most folks had a phone before anyway, but no one really. It's not popular to wear a watch anymore, even with some of the things like the wearable or the Pebble and the Gear. That's still kind of a niche thing for techies. But if you can put a moral pitch behind it and say this isn't just a watch, it isn't just a device to catch your notifications that you can already see on your phone, it's gonna improve your life. That's kind of Apple's deal anyway.
Yeah, and if any company were to do this, it would be Apple. I mean, you can look at their track record with new categories over the last decade and a half or so. And in terms of devices that are already doing similar things, I've been looking at all the different devices out there over the course of this report in the last few months. The Basis health tracker, they were acquired by Intel a couple of weeks ago. They do the majority of the functionality that the Healthbook is able to track, save for blood pressure, blood sugar, and other stuff. And there's plenty of devices that work with pulse oximeters to do respiratory rate and oxygen saturation. There's been some strides done in the hydration space, which Healthbook also tracks. The more concerning stuff is the blood. the blood things. I was talking to some experts in the field, and the way these sensors work is there's basically very high resolution cameras, sort of like in the Touch ID sensor in the iPhone 5s home button, that basically would be able to go through your skin and interpret like vein patterns and recognize your veins to be able to find the respiratory rate, the pulse, and the other data. So I think with Apple's experience and hires and camera technology and small sensor technology, I think that Healthbook, honestly, it could really go either way. It could either go toward the being a central aggregator for health data from other apps, or it could be something that ties directly to an iWatch. And what better way to basically hype up expectations for the watch and boost sales by making the conduit for working with such a sensor band built into a software update that's going to hit 400, 500 million phones in a matter of minutes this fall. So.
Yeah, even if it's not the best, the best sensors on the market for this technology, just like the iPhone isn't measurably the best camera. There are way more.
I disagree there. Yeah, see, when you're dealing with the medical stuff, there's no time or room to screw around. There's no such thing as the SensorGate press conference. There's no such thing as wait for Gen 2 to fix that up. We're talking about health stuff here, especially with these talks with the FDA. I mean, this is not a matter of megapixels. This is not a matter of you're holding your phone wrong. This could be a matter of life or death.
Yeah, some people are going to use this in critical situations for measuring.
So I don't think iPhone 4 will screw up on this like they screwed up on the iPhone 4 and other things.
Yeah, I do think that there's room though for there to be FDA approval. It meets the standard, but it's not a $10,000 device. It's a sub $1,000 device that can perform these things, and you can afford it. Just like maybe $100 blood pressure monitor isn't as good as something you see at a doctor's office, but it's accessible, and that's what's really important. In my analogy to a camera, just like the iPhone isn't the best camera, it's the one that a lot of us have, and so to us it really is the best camera.
Do you work for Apple PR, Zach?
No, not at all. But I think I think that some people will if it is an app that's got a very big appeal. Since it's going to ship on the phone, but some people may not care about it. I think Mike was saying that even if it is, it's not something that he's going to really be concerned with. And you've got the freedom to hide it away.
Here's my thing with if it requires an external hardware purchase, you have to buy an iWatch to get the most out of Healthbook. A lot of people are going to look at that price tag, and if it's unreasonable, which it being an Apple product, it very well could be, $99 for this watch or more.
If you're thinking the watch is going to be $99, your wallet has another thing coming. So
I don't. No, I'm saying that would be a really low end price in my opinion for all the things they're trying to cram into this watch. But
okay, Mike.
What I'm saying is, I would consider it an unreasonable price for the iWatch, but it will probably
$99 is unreasonable.
I'm not going to go spend $99 on it. Most people aren't, I don't think.
Well, you're not going to buy one.
That's the problem, I think, is that if people look at the price tag and go, it's just a watch, it does some health stuff, that's great, but I could go get something for cheaper. I could go pick up, some other health doodad for cheaper. Then they'll do that instead of buying an iWatch and using Healthbook. So
let's go back to the more likely theory, which would be Healthbook as an aggregator for all the existing health apps. So put aside Mike's price issues with the $130 Fitbit and the $200 wireless blood pressure checker and the $150 wireless weight scale. So what's it going to mean for the health industry if that's what Healthbook is? Is it going to be a huge boon for Fitbit? How are devices going to be tied into that? There's obviously going to be an API. Mayo could speak to that a bit if you'd like. What do you think? So,
I raised an issue with that the other day, is that if you have multiple apps on the App Store that are feeding information into this, and two of them are sending conflicting information for whatever reason, how does Healthbook know which one is correct, and how does it sort out information that could be incorrect from these apps that may not be super well built or might be relying on unreliable hardware?
Right.
Yeah.
Something interesting that we saw with the M7 that can measure your steps is that even Fitbit took advantage of that in their app, and they said this kind of makes your iPhone into a Fitbit where it can measure your steps, but we want people to buy our hardware anyway. So if Healthbook does pick up data they could use that as like a starting gate, for promoting their products. We're Healthbook compatible, but we also sell this other accessory that'll make this a lot better than just your iPhone alone.
If it is an aggregator, do you think we'll keep seeing these sort of like single-purpose devices, or is some company just going to come out and bring out a thing that tracks all of these sensors in one device anyway? Because you're going to get a bit tied down with having like a Fitbit for your steps, a blood monitor, around your waist or whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to end up carrying like 5 things to just fill your Healthbook up.
Right. The closest thing on the market to what Mayo explained is the Basis Health Tracker, which is now under the umbrella of Intel, interestingly.
Is that on sale?
Sorry?
Is that on sale?
Yeah. I see.
How much is it? Do you know how much?
I forgot, honestly, but it's very advanced, and it basically does about, I'd say, over 50% of the functionality supported by Healthbook. So
it wouldn't be unlike Apple to ship, to include Healthbook as an app on iOS 8 or whenever, because they did ship the M7 without anything on the market that could show it. They said Nike Move or whatever it's called was coming soon. But that,
I mean, they did Healthbook without anything stock included. They just let that out to the third.
Yeah, and you've got Newsstand included without anything that doesn't require a subscription.
Right, but the way that Healthbook is designed, so the way Passbook is designed, it's blank. There's no cards.
True.
Healthbook, it's pre-stacked with all those statistics, and it's very clear that the data has to come from somewhere. I mean, from what I've reported, it looks like it's getting info directly from hardware, really. So, I mean, I don't know. It remains to be seen. I honestly think if you flip a coin, you can't go wrong. I think it's either going to be the aggregator like Passbook, or it's going to tie to an iWatch. I really think there's nothing more cut and dry than that.
Yeah.
So when do you think they'll announce this then? Say if it is, I mean, obviously that depends on the answer to the question, but if it's tied to like an Apple device, would they just wait until then?
Yeah, they're going to have to save it till that. I mean, it's very possible that they'll just unveil the iWatch and iOS 8 simultaneously, WWDC, give the product a 3 or 4 month lead time. I mean, based on Apple's history the last few months with this lack of innovation, I don't know. Maybe it would be a little bit surprising to see an iWatch basically come up on stage in a few months' time from now. I mean, look, they've done absolutely nothing, and we're already in late March 2014. And this is
the thing you always come back to is that quote where he said, across 2014, that's what Cook said, isn't it?
Across.
And so we've hit 3 months, we've got nothing.
Right, and across was in stark contrast to everything in 2013 being June till the end of the year, right? When they were talking about this on it was either Q2 or Q3 earnings call last year, 2013. So it remains to be seen. Was there an issue with the Apple TV so far? I mean, I heard it was originally scheduled to be introduced in the first half of this year. Could have been pushed back. Who knows at this point? Maybe they're requiring extra resources to ramp up the iWatch to get it out the door later this year. Who knows? That would be great. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, and I think that our expectations versus what Apple considers to be doing something is really different, because, I mean, even Tim Cook went back and said any reasonable person will think that this is a new product category, which means that unreasonable people will not think that, and that kind of dampers down his line about new products in 2014, a new category in 2014. What they've done this past week alone is they've replaced the iPad 2 with the iPad 4 at the same price point, and they've put out an 8GB iPhone 5C in certain non-US markets. And I think Apple really does. They think that that's doing things, into people like us that are moved way past the iPhone or the iPad 4. That's not.
I don't think that is
that.
I mean, if they think that, they've got their heads up somewhere else.
That would be ridiculous.
Reintroducing the iPad 4 is not a new category.
Right, not a new category, but certainly they may consider that to be a contrast to last year's not doing anything until the end of the year.
Whatever, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
It doesn't really bother me.
Yeah, the iPad. Let's talk about that for a second. The iPad 4 replacing the iPad 2, because it is the same price point. I think the general consensus is that this should have happened when they introduced the iPad Air last October.
Most definitely, yeah.
I mean, iOS 7 looks broken on an iPad 2 without a Retina display. It's almost like that's like the example of why you should buy an iPad 4 or iPad Air.
I'm curious why they did that. I mean, if you look at it actually probably just comes down to margins. I mean, that's all they're thinking about these days. So.
Yeah, the iPad Mini hurt margins, and I think the Retina iPad Mini hurt them even more probably because they're putting a lot of technology into that without raising the price very much. And
Well, I'm talking
so,
about the iPad Air.
well, the iPad Mini Retina display alone.
Oh, that's what you said.
Um,
Yeah, both great. I think I have an iPad Air. I think it's fantastic. It's really
yeah.
it's a nice leap forward. But in terms
You
of the
work
iPad,
for Apple PR.
sorry.
Do you work for Apple PR, Mark?
Yeah.
What I mean, I think that there is way to them having the iPad 2 out for as long as it was out because of margins, because I'm sure they were able to make that for a lot less expensive than they are the iPad 4.
Right.
And when they change that up, they're giving away a lot of money.
And who knows how much it costed to reboot production of a discontinued product? You know, I don't know. I'm not an expert in that, but it must cost something to reboot production. It's not the same components as the iPad 2. It's an entirely new rear shell, even though it looks the same. Sticker. Got to still rebuild the entire part. New camera parts, new everything that they've already, threw out the door. Was it along the lines of their entire roadmap to discontinue the product for 6 months? I don't know. We'll see. Actually, we won't see because I don't think we'll ever know that.
One of the theories that I have is that when the iPad 2 is sticking around, everyone's reason was because it's huge in education. It's the education iPad, and we reported a few months ago a pretty big school district was getting iPads for their classrooms, and they're having trouble with what they thought was a good deal because they were paying iPad 4 prices for iPad 2s because the negotiations had taken so long at the speed of government that they were getting old hardware at new hardware cost. And I think that may have played a factor as well, is that enough educators were like, we don't want this iPad 2, even at the $399 price, So just by getting the iPad 2 off the table and just offering the iPad 4, that may help out a lot with that situation.
Yeah, that's a good point. Apple's really big into education. They've always been. So, yeah.
I think the iPad 2, iPad 4 price point is a big thing for businesses as well, who literally just use it as like point of sale devices. They didn't care about the higher end pricing, but there's like coffee shops that use them for menus and stuff, and it's just a price game. All you need is a screen. Like the iPad 2 is like in terms of power like perfectly capable, and obviously in October Apple couldn't bring it down to that $399 price, and now they can, so they changed it.
Man, it just isn't even a good screen, and if you're only using your first screen, that's not a good purchase. The other thing is that we know they didn't do it because they didn't want to just get rid of 30-pin, because even though they put out an 8GB iPhone 5C, which could have replaced the 4S at that price point, they didn't do that in the US, so we still have 30-pin in the US.
That's very interesting because they had that unique opportunity to knock out the legacy screen size in the legacy connector in one full swoop. But no.
Well, it's the classic.
What?
They have to keep making 30-pin cables for that.
Well, you get one in the box, and that's as far as you need to go. but yeah, I mean that would have been a very clean move, and you never know why Apple does anything. But that would have.
I also don't know why the 8GB 5C is exclusive to overseas networks. It's because
everybody's running out to buy them. They're really supply constrained about them.
But Apple's statement was something like there's LTE in these markets that's developing. It didn't make a lot of sense.
LTE in the U.S.
It wasn't consistent.
The other 5Cs already in the U.S.
Do you guys think we'll ever see the 8GB 5C come to the U.S.? Maybe next update cycle?
Maybe. I don't know. I still think 8GB devices in 2014 is a little harsh. Seeing that iCloud's promise is to keep everything in the cloud for you, but in the end it's just a synchronization service and it doesn't really take anything off of your local storage, anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, if anything, it adds to it. I mean, I've got a 16GB iPad Air, which is a mistake to buy. I wish I would have bought at least a 32. But I can't use my shared photo streams with other people because they add videos and pictures, and that iCloud feature adds a lot of takes away a lot of storage from my device. So
iCloud's more of like a backup mechanism than a storage mechanism. It just backs up what's on your phone and then obviously sends it across your other devices.
Sure. Yeah.
So in some cases, it does the opposite of taking away storage. I mean,
it just works.
It does work sometimes, but
I have a 32GB iPhone. I wish I had a 64 because I've almost filled this thing up with all that other stuff that they put on there that they don't let you take off, and the OS and all of that takes up so much space. The stuff like mail attachments, messages attachments, things like that.
Right, that's right.
So it's not like their head is in the sand about this. So iOS 8 is going to have the ability to auto-delete your messages threads. So if you have an older device or you're running off of an older backup and you have 2 years of text messages and images, that's, like Mike just said, going to take lots of storage room from your phone. So with this new auto-delete feature, that would clean some things up. And I think that would be a nice touch to make some people happy. Something they should have done years ago, but here we are.
Probably work well for 8 gig devices.
Yeah, right. Because like when I was talking to Michael about this, Michael Sieber, he works for 9to5Mac. He did the graphics, did a great job for Healthbook. Apple, you should hire him. The first thing that he thought was, wow, Apple's adding this so they could just bring back 8 gigabyte devices. And then look, 8 gigabyte 5C comes out. So.
It's something that doesn't even work for me though, because like I've got a 16 gigabyte iPad. It's a clean install, so all the iMessages were brand new, and I was running out of space largely because of messages. Because I guess I send a lot of pictures and videos, because my phone's got a camera on it, and so I found myself turning off iMessages on the iPad, which I love to use, but I just couldn't store everything without me having to manually get rid of threads. And even a year's backup wouldn't do me well because the iPad aired in August and only been out since October. That was just a few months of messages. And another thing that doesn't make a lot of sense with how the fact that they do store all these messages is you can search them in Spotlight, but you can't go back to them without scrolling. So they're almost not even accessible. So it's hard. I think people, the idea of holding on to your messages like that, you can get them off if you sync to a computer and use some weird programs, but you can't get them any other way.
I mean, that's one thing where I'd like it if iCloud could just store them. Like, you don't have to keep them locally.
Like suck them off your device.
Yeah, just back them up and then just leave them there and they don't sync back.
Yeah, it's almost like if you mix kind of Apple and Google and some of their practices together, what you could get, and instead it's just a lot different.
I mean, because one thing with like the if you send a video in an iMessage to somebody else, then you're actually making 2 copies of the video on your phone. Because you have the video in your camera roll, and then you have the video in the message conversation, and it basically copies them. So you double the space of just a video.
And I've added the video to my iPad if I'm not even using it because it has iPad or iMessage on my Mac. There's a lot of inefficiencies there. One more thing before we wrap up, I want to talk about is something else that Mark reported originally was preview and text edit come into iOS.
Right, not for sure, but they're testing that. So
yeah, testing it. It's something that people. It's a mixed bag because I've heard a lot of people say I want this to happen, especially for preview and text edit, and then when it comes out or when it's reported, and people are like, this doesn't make any sense. So let's talk about that.
Okay, so basically with Mountain Lion 2012, they shipped it with iCloud built into the core. That was the first Mac OS to do so, and what happened is they came out with new versions of TextEdit and Preview on the Mac. So TextEdit is a rich text editor, very simple, use it often, other people use it. Preview is basically what you're using to read PDFs and other files and to make minor edits to those types of documents and images, cropping, etc. So the deal is those applications have iCloud support, so they can sync through iCloud. Most people have a Mac, not many Macs. But the only way iCloud works with these apps is through syncing your preview files and your text edit files with other Macs that you own. So if you have like MacBook and an iMac, fine. But unlike every other iCloud feature or app that syncs with iCloud on the Mac, there's no iOS app version of those apps. So now all they're doing, I mean, people have really blown this out of proportion. All they're doing is making it so iCloud actually works like it's supposed to. So basically, coming out with iOS apps for text edit and preview, you could put that in the bug fix category if you ask me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's like Notes. It's like if Notes was on the iPhone and they put Notes on the iPhone.
Well, it's like if Notes was only on the Mac and Notes on the iPhone didn't support iCloud.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's a fix.
Yeah, it won't be feature parity just like Notes on the iPhone. You can't add images or videos yet, but on the Mac you can. There's going to be more features on the Mac than there are on the iPhone or iPad.
Right. From what I understand, it's basically just like buckets to be able to view and upload the files.
Which makes a lot of sense. Currently in your iOS settings, you can see under iCloud, you can see preview. I guess you could see text edit as well. Because it takes up space, and you need to be able to manage your iCloud space.
Yeah, it's taking space up on your phone technically anyways. You might as well be able to access the files. They're there on your phone.
Right. And I think right now you can delete specific files, you just can't view them. And so it makes a lot of sense that you want to be able to view it before you delete it, or even just hit an action button and send it off to somewhere else.
Yeah.
There's one app on the Mac that is not preview and text edit, and only one that I can find that still has iCloud support, aside from those two, that doesn't have an iOS companion app in the works, and that's Automator.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Automator has iCloud support?
Yeah, so you can sync your scripts between Macs, I guess.
Yeah.
Huh.
But that'd be
it would be dumb to bring that to iOS. It wouldn't make any sense.
That'd be iPad Pro. I mean, it wouldn't focus on iOS. You're not
13-inch iPad.
It's just interesting to note that those are the only 3 apps currently remaining that don't have counterparts on iOS.
Right. Yeah, and the other thing that you reported for iOS 8 that could be in the cards is iTunes Radio being a separate app. A lot of people didn't like that because it's one more icon. For me, I think it makes a lot of sense because the stuff that you wrote about, which was to promote it. But also, if you look at iTunes Radio within the music app, it's a pretty busy interface. There's a lot of things going on there. There's history, there's wish lists, there's new stations. It's not easy to understand what your stations are doing. So it could very well be its own app that has its own toolbar, just like music does.
It's just like everything that I've reported. I mean, these things can and will change. So just putting that out there. I mean, I don't know of any changes as of yet, but they're just working on so many builds and different ideas simultaneously. So we'll see.
It's interesting that they keep breaking out features into new icons too. Like FaceTime in iOS 7, they took out of the phone app and they put as a separate
nobody
icon.
believed me when I said that either.
And music and videos and I believe iTunes U and podcasts all used to be in one app, and now they're all separate apps as well. And now iTunes Radio, another one.
That's right. Yeah.
I didn't mind it with like iTunes U and podcasts though, because they're App Store apps, and that's what Hope and Text Edit and Preview will become. They're just App Store apps that you can download it optionally.
Yeah, that would be good.
I don't know.
It's odd that they have all these redundant features on the home screen, but they want to talk about removing Game Center, which doesn't.
Okay. Yeah. So that's another thing. So they're talking about removing the Game Center app from the iOS and Mac operating systems. Why? People don't really use it. What people do use is the service itself. And Game Center is going to stay alive and well, as far as I know, as of right now, and they will keep it in the app, so you can still view leaderboards, all that, in the settings. But the app isn't really needed. Plus, does anyone know what those blobs of color are, anyways?
Well, it's just like iCloud is built into apps. You don't have an iCloud app on your phone.
Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense.
It's a service.
Right.
They're devoting it to a service. I mean, I guess it is a service.
It's a welcome change for me. So. But and the last thing I'll mention is that if Preview and Text Edit go the App Store route, there's a lot of apps that are the App Store route when you first get a new device. These days, you see when you go to the App Store, a prompt to download a bunch of apps, and there's one button that will do it for you. It'll download all of iLife, all of iWork, iBooks, podcasts, Find My iPhone, Find My Friends. And these apps, especially the iWork and iLife apps, take up space. I think Keynote and GarageBand being the worst. I think, if I can add on anything, I'd say that I'd like to see less of this 8 gigabyte stuff and more along the way of 32 being the minimum at a 16 gigabyte price. 64 gigabyte being the middle ground.
Can you even fit all those Apple apps?
No, you can't. iLife and iWork fill 8 gigs. You can't fit
that's
them.
a post.
Yeah.
and you can't update over the air, because that was the big problem with 7.1 is that people were stuck, or even with the 706 with the SSL bug, people couldn't get to it because their devices were full. I had people asking me, how can I offload all these pictures because I can't get the SSL bug, and people are saying it's bad. Yeah. But
iTunes is still around, I guess.
Yeah, well.
Then you gotta download the whole thing.
Well, it would make a lot of sense if Apple just drew the line and said, we're not going to support 8. We're not going to make 8 gigabyte devices. We're not going to keep selling 16 gigabyte devices. We're going to go 32 and up. That'd be nice. But.
Well, here's another thing about the 8 gigabyte iPhone 5C. There's been talk that they're going to, in the Wall Street Journal, that they're going to kill the iPhone 5C upon the next revision. Has there ever been an Apple product that only existed for 6 months?
iPad 3?
Okay, yeah, I guess that's it.
Which deserved it, though, right?
Yeah. All right. Forget that.
Oh.
What we have.
Never mind, yeah.
Well, cool, guys. It was good catching up. It was, for the first show, there's a lot of stuff to talk about, and I think we did a good job. So.
Yeah, next week?
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks a lot, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I
Mike,
appreciate it.
Benjamin.
Always nice to be here.
Cheers.
All right, it's fine. Take care, guys.
Zach, Ben.